If you, as some of you have, come up to my office in the building next door, one of the things that you will see immediately is, and you've heard me talk about it, is a beautiful fish tank, which is an important part of my office. Wherever I go, my fish tank goes with me. And when you go into the office and you have a look at the fish tank, you will see tetras, a breed of fish from South America, platies from Mexico, there will be mollies from the United States, there will be characins from Africa, zebras from Europe, fighting fish from Thailand, rainbow fish from Australia, gouramis from India, diamond fish from Venezuela, and a red-tailed black shark from Thailand. So they all have a background which is completely different to each other. That fish tank in tropical fish terms is known as a community tank, because it is effectively a community of different fish from throughout the world. And when you think about it, all the different weather conditions and the temperatures of the water and the hardness of the water and everything that they originally came from is all different. And yet somehow they are able to live together in harmony in my office. They come together, a whole range of completely different species. A lesson to us all, and even now they continue to adapt. I find this amazing. I have a fish in that tank. It's called a red-tailed black shark. It's now about 14 years old. And when I first got it, it was a tiny little fish about that big. The tank that I put it in then was a relatively small tank, which was about that big. And it grew as a little baby fish a little bit, and it lived within that tank quite well. And then I moved jobs. And as I said, when I move jobs, my fish tank goes with me. So it's always an opportunity to develop it a bit. So in my next job, I got a bigger tank, maybe about that big. The fish were transferred. And would you believe that little red-tailed black shark grew to the size of the tank that it was in, the new tank? As it did on the third tank, and now it's got a big tank like this, and the fish is that big. It actually adapts to the environment. Quite remarkable, the environment that it finds itself within. And of course, it finds itself within my fish tank. If I had been born in Pakistan, I probably would be a faithful and devout Muslim. If I had been born in Tibet, I would probably be a Buddhist. If I'd been born into India, a Hindu. Or if I'd been born into a Jewish family, I'd probably be a devout Jew. Much of who we are and what we are is because of an accident of birth. And this applies to our religion and to our sexuality and to our body shape. It applies to the fact whether we keep our hair or not. Thanks, Dad. My dad was absolutely bald. At least I've got a little bit, but that's because I inherited that from my father. And that applies to us all. We in St. Michael's, we're a community tank. We're different species from different places with differing backgrounds. We even have another community tank over there. It's called the choir. There is Catherine, who's one member of that community tank, who's a soprano. And there's Nick, who's another member of the same tank, but he sings pretty differently because he's a baritone. But together, of course, they make a community which we call the choir. So this morning, in our conversation with Imam Nur, we've already started to talk about different worlds. The world of Christianity, the world of Islam, the LGBTI world, and the straight world. Here in St. Michael's, we're pretty safe. We're comfortable. I think we're warm, just about. We love it. We love being here. But some of those places and some of those other worlds that we consider are not as comfortable. In some countries, homosexuality is a capital offense. Example, in Egypt and Saudi Arabia and in Somalia, Nur's own country. In other countries, marriage equality is normal. In the United States, in Canada, Ireland, and the UK. Differences, different worlds. The world of Islam is often presented to us as a solid block, but it has a whole range of different people within it. We might want to call them progressive or moderate or conservatives. It has historic divisions and political and cultural and economic divides. The world of Christianity has huge differences. Even within our own small part of it, the Uniting Church in Australia, there are many splits and tensions. There are many uniting churches in Australia where I wouldn't feel at home. Many worlds, many voices. And we need to listen to a lot of voices to even begin to understand and respect. Not all those differences are good. I was preaching in a church once, it was a Methodist church, and I happened to make reference to the fact that I didn't look at the Bible literally, and I didn't actually, as an example, believe that the world was created in 4004 BC in 7 days around the Garden of Eden. And the senior society steward of that church stood up and asked me to leave and told me never to come back ever again. I didn't. But you see what I mean? Sometimes those differences aren't good. Just because they're different doesn't mean to say they're good. What we need to do is to acknowledge that different voices come together. And when they do come together, they can make sometimes a pretty good tune. But those voices are different. Now, Catherine, give us an example of one different voice. This is a soprano voice. And Nick, can you give us an example of a different sort of voice again? Different, but coming together, the whole choir. So we, like the choir, are a diverse mob. Some black, some white, many different shades, some followers, some leaders, some conservative, some progressive, some passive, some active, some are effervescent, some are quiet. And we pick and choose, selecting the things that fit our style. We adapt and adopt to our environment. We select things that fit our style, our taste, our interest. We identify, each one of us, with the tiniest little bit of creation or of God that we know and understand, and it's very, very small. And we interpret our faith and understanding from within that tiny, minute experience. Let me quote Petru Dimitriou in his wonderful novel Incognito. He talks about the refusal to exclude any experience from the raw material of theology that is courageous. He says, God is everything. He is also composed of volcanoes and tapeworms. But if you think that justifies you jumping into an active volcano, well, go ahead. You're like a fish that asks the question, do you mean to say God isn't only in water? He's on dry land as well? To which the answer is, yes, my dear fish. He's on dry land as well. But if you climb onto dry land, you'll be sorry. See what I mean? We take risks in our theology, but we can only operate within our own limitations, and acknowledge that. We make up a world of diversity. So, what about in our lives and in our worship from time to time, mixing up some Buddhist meditation with our Judo-Christian base, then topping it up with some agnostic anxiety and Muslim devotion. And then we'll wrap it all up with some what you might call spiritual but not religious. We all know the golden rule, don't we, from Matthew 7, verse 12. And Jesus says, so whatever you wish that men would do to you, do so to them. This is the law of the prophets. Or alternatively, this is the sum of duty. Do not to others what would cause pain if done to you. Or treat not others in ways that you yourself would find hurtful. Or not one of you truly believes until you wish for others what you wish for yourself. Or what is hateful to you, do not do to your neighbor. This is the whole Torah. All the rest is commentary. Or our identity with land is sacred and unique. We have a very strong sense of community. All people matter. All of us belong to each other. And when you read those, you may think that I'm just reading different versions of the Golden Rule from Matthew verse 17. But no. The first was from the Hindu faith. The second from Buddhism. The third from Islam. The fourth from Judaism. And the last one is Aboriginal spirituality. All those faiths are remarkably different voices, but together they could make a fabulous choir.